Hello there, I'm Harry, and welcome. Um, Something I've been thinking about a lot lately. Ooh, car just gone past. Um, Something I've been thinking an awful lot about lately is how hard life gets, how difficult it is, and how many different people deal with it, or don't deal with it in some way. Um, Life seems to be hard for the majority, and people often don't know how to cope with it. They have no idea how to get through, and then the next thing happens, and the next thing happens, and just like dominoes, things seems to just keep going wrong and keep going wrong. Um, this is really sad. This is really sad. Um, because life isn't actually as hard as it seems. I actually had a name for this video in my head even before I started. I usually pick the name afterward, but I think I'm going to call it "Hell Isn't Too Hot," because as hard as life gets, as hard as it may be, whatever you're going through, specifically you can do it. Whatever it is, you can get through it. Now, with the specific thing you may want, you may need to stop and reevaluate. And that's okay, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in, thinking back. But it really isn't as bad as we think it is. And I know, like, I'm speaking from a very, very privileged position. I have, but, and there's people that have less than what I have and they've got, and, but I can certainly tell you my experience. I spent most of my life being very dishonest and thinking better of myself and doing the wrong things because people told me to do them and because they were above me in the congregation I was in, because they were my family, because they were my friends, because I trusted them. I did what they said, and I listened, and I also didn't really have much in the way of education for myself on setting boundaries. And this led me to a place where I did something which I thought was for a good reason, and actually I found out I was running away. To make things simple, I went to go and preach in a foreign country. I taught myself Spanish over a number of years, and I'm reasonably good now. I've lost it a bit because I don't really speak it so often. I still like singing some of the songs, but I thought I was going to help people, but I went on a self-funded trip to Guatemala, and I went there to preach, and I was doing it with the best of intentions in my mind, at least. And many people told me not to go, and many people told me that it was a bad choice, and some people were like, "Yeah, go and do it." And I chose the people who I wanted to listen to, and I tried to give myself a bit of a footing. Like I saved up about £3,000. I'm not sure what that is in dollars, but so I think maybe like at the time maybe like $3,600, $3,400, something like that. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough to get me started and keep me afloat for a number of months. But I bought a return ticket just in case money went and I needed to get home. And I got there, and it was as beautiful as I thought it would be. But I went there expecting a give and take, not understanding the privilege I was in, and I kept holding on to, they should be giving to me, and they should, they should appreciate what I'm doing. And through a series of events, I almost got married, and I would have gone through with the marriage. It was, the intelligence of the other party, the other woman, to put an end to things. It was very close to the wedding day as well. She was very smart. Could have been better about it, but but through my own faults and my own actions, I ended up, I would call it, imprisoned in Mexico, and then I spent for a good 9 months, and I spent a further 9 months imprisoned in Guatemala because I simply couldn't afford to go back. And it was during the pandemic, so not only that, I wasn't, we were given strict instructions by the government and by my, by family, and where I was in Mexico, it was a place that was, quite, not great. I was in Mexico City, and I was in a very, very bad neighborhood. I didn't know anything about Mexico City or anything. I knew it was a dangerous place, but I was going for 5 days to be with my girlfriend at the time, and I kept seeing red flags, and I kept making decisions against my better judgment, and it led me down this path. And to cut a long story short, I was trapped in Mexico, and then I was further trapped in Guatemala, and I was on my own, and I was forced to think. I was forced to be on my own. It was the thing that I feared most, was being on my own, being with my own thoughts, dealing with the problems I had. It was I wanted to escape that. I was always trying to escape this. And I kept going down this path, and it led me to this kind of strange situation where I was left on my own. And, I want to be honest here on this platform about who I was, but there's only so much TikTok, YouTube, there's only so much pornography you can watch. There's only so much whatever. And I know it's stuff I shouldn't have been doing, but I was alone, and I gave in. But eventually, in that kind of situation, you're confronted with everything that you're scared of, everything in your mind that is against you. And being trapped in Mexico, being imprisoned, being in a prison of my own making, was the single greatest thing that could have possibly happened to me. It was my first step to self-discovery and realization. That was my hell. It was a burning pit of disgusting awfulness. But that thing bridged the gap between my fears and myself, and forced me to confront what I was going through. And I made it back to England, and I moved to where I am now. And because I've been through it, because I did that, because I made that such a humongous mistake, I was forced to confront reality. And that set me up for life. It was the single best thing to go through. I found out who was really there for me. I found out who my real friends were, and I found out everything I needed to know about myself to a large degree. And I'm still pretty much in a not so great situation. Still debts I've got. I still feel quite isolated, and there's not too many people I would call friends. But the people I do have in my life now, they are the best of best people. They are the best of the best people. I am so happy with the people in my life, with the people who did actually stick around, with the people who actually showed me their love and friendship. Show me the true meaning of what love is. And now I've been through that kind of hell, I look back and it actually wasn't that bad. As in, I can, if I don't want to talk about it here, maybe not in this video, maybe in a future one, I don't really know. But because I confronted what I went through, because I suffered, I'll put it this way. I kind of thought of this. Before I make a video, I kind of sit down, I have a little bit of a smoke, and I talk about whatever I want to talk about, and I mull it over a little bit. That was some advice I got. I think I mentioned that in another video, but I kind of thought that how do you actually get strong? How do you get stronger? And the simple answer is you pick up heavy things. That's it. That's how you get strong. And the real interesting thing is about suffering and pain is that there's this brilliant scripture that I think about a lot, and it says, "You will not be tested beyond what you can bear." And it also said that it's not God putting us under test, which is a really funny thing. Many people think it's God doing whatever He's doing to us. We're allowed to go through. We're allowed to suffer because of our own mistakes, and we're allowed to go through certain pains for certain reasons. And sometimes it's just the bad place. You're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Sometimes it's your own mistakes, and sometimes it's the mistake of others. But whatever it is that you're going through, whatever it is, no matter how bad it gets, you can handle it. And the only reason you're going through it is because you can handle it. There's no one else in the world who could handle it. You're the only one who could do it. That's why you're going through what you're going through. So I think that it's important to realize how powerful we actually are. Now, the other day, one of my bosses at work, he's a Hindu, and I was asking about what is the point of the Bhagavad Gita, the scriptures of Hinduism. What does it give you? What's the thing behind it? And he said nothing, right? which I thought was funny. So I went away and I looked up, and I realized two things. One, I'd never asked that question about the Bible. What is the point of the Bible? And number two, I found out that the point of the Bhagavad Gita, according to this one Hindu monk, is the book is there to teach you how strong you are. And it says that it's, I've not read it, I don't know, but it starts out with confusion and ends with enlightenment. It's the kind of point of the Bhagavad Gita, apparently so. Now I don't know nothing, I'm not here to push reading of that or to say not to. I'm just here to say what I learned the other day. And I've kind of thought that that's exactly the same message of the Bible. It's exactly the same. It's to teach you how powerful and how incredible we are. And throughout the Bible, it reveals certain things about how God feels about you and I. And the first thing He tells us, the first thing that He reveals about us, is that it's the obvious thing. He made us in His image. What does that mean? We have inherently within us the qualities that God has, inherently so. Whether we serve God or not, we have them. Paul later on goes on to say, I think something about like those who are not under law naturally go on to do the things of the law. That we all seem to kind of, to some point, to some degree, follow the laws of nature that God put into place. A little bit later on, it tells it's one. I think I said this in my first video. It's my favorite scripture, and it will continue to be as a great thing to think about. Genesis 11 verse 6, God talks about the Tower of Babel. He looks down on the people and he's feeling some kind of regret, some apprehension about what the people are doing in building this specific tower. And he says that nothing that they will have in mind to do will be impossible for them. People who weren't seeking his blessing. And that's kind of a crazy thing to think about. People like, and I thought about that for a while when I during my time in Mexico and Guatemala. That it's the point of that is the only reason that they were able to do that is because they had, everyone inherently has one blessing, and the blessing is that you are made in God's image. And that means that you are powerful enough and strong enough to do whatever it is that you want to do. Whatever you want to do, you got it. You absolutely can go do it. Now, many people in this world, there's people that support feminism, and people who believe that the world and society is inherently racist. It's my opinion that this is very small-minded, because there are countless. In Western society there are way more white people who are successful, but there are plenty of successful, beautiful black people. There's certainly successful people of every race, and everyone needs to go through pain to get to whatever it is they want. It shouldn't be easy, and it's hard for you, but it's hard for everyone else, and it's different hardnesses for you and different hardnesses for someone else. But you have to decide that it's for you, that it's what you want, that it is what it is. Power was something that I've always struggled with. I've always kind of felt powerless, which is kind of what led me into my situation in Guatemala and Mexico, where I felt very imprisoned, and I was literally unable to come back. I didn't have the money, I didn't have the funds, and I was barely scraping by. It was hard. But when I found out how powerful the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of the New Testament, how this God views us, you and me personally, and you personally, is that we are like him. And I've thought a little bit recently, this was kind of a weird thing. I was sitting in work today, I wasn't working today. I was sitting at work 3 days ago, and I had this kind of like realization. I saw this little Jordan Peterson clip come up. And I was thinking about the Genesis account of Adam and Eve and Satan. Right? So Genesis chapter 3, the first 6 verses or whatever it is. And you've got this, the character of Satan creates these 2 sentences. And that's all I think that's, if I'm right, it's 2 or 3 sentences that he says, and that's all we get. And in 2 sentences, he skewed the mind of Eve to do something that she was commanded not to do. He said, okay, I'm going to butcher this, but is it true that God said you must not eat from every tree of the garden? Implying restriction from God. And then her response is, no, we can eat from everything, but only from the tree of knowledge of good and bad, the only one. And Satan says, and she says that for in the day that we eat of it, we will die. And Satan immediately replies, you will not die. For he knows in the day that you eat from it, you will become like him, knowing good and bad. And that's it. those are so it's the three sentences. The one question: you will positively not die, and then for in the day that you eat from it, he knows that you will be like him, knowing good and bad. There are three lies there that I can ascertain. Three. It was right that they would know good and bad. That bit, because they had it revealed to them. They all of a sudden realized that they were sinful. They realized that their mistakes. They knew the difference between good and bad. That they were the ones to decide this. God wanted to be able to decide what was good and bad, and He wanted to give them but that was number one, that they would die. Number two was that God restricts us, and He doesn't give abundantly. And the third lie is you need to do something in order to be better. Those are lies. What God has told us throughout the Bible, throughout this book, that this fantastic thing is that there is nothing that we need to do to gain His love. Even the Israelites, in their stupidity, in going off and serving other gods throughout the Old Testament, God still loved them and sent people to them to bring them back. In Psalms and Proverbs, he's called by David, I think it is, the hearer of prayer. Now, God has myriads of angels, so that means that he's allowed to, who's allowing him? It means that he can tell anyone to do any job. And all angels have got jobs, right, apparently. Let's assume they have. There's administration, there's other things. God is organized, right? He's a God not of disorder, but a God of peace, right? So, he's organized. But he doesn't give the hearing of prayer to anyone else. It's only to him, which is flipping bonkers. That's how much he cares about us. That's how much he loves us. And despite our sins and our problems and the things we do, he gives us way more than we could ever imagine. The world we have is imbued with abundance. It's all there. We have it all. Inherently. By virtue of being a human being. Now, the second, the first lie, it's obviously we all die, so that's clearly a lie. That's the second lie. The last lie, at least that I can ascertain for now, is that he said that in the day, he knows that if you eat this thing, you will then be able to. Is kind of the idea. You already have. Whatever it is that you want, you've already got it. It's already yours. Now, this isn't like, oh yeah, go and steal it because it's there. No. You can have anything you want. All of it. And God gives us nature, gives us restrictions, and He gives us direction on how to do certain things. But certainly you have it. Whatever it is, you've already got it. And I think that's a incredibly powerful thing to understand. You've already got it. When you focus on you not having something, you're saying, I don't have, so I need to do something. I'm not good enough to have this thing, so I need to do something to go out and get it. You know, I want to tell you two things, two experiences of mine that kind of illustrate this point. And the first time I didn't quite realize how great this was. I didn't quite, but and the second thing is very recent, in my life at least. And this is all true, at least, from my perspective at least. So when I was in Mexico, I was in this apartment and it was dark and dingy. It was very cheap. It was in this horrible neighborhood and it was during pandemic. So I couldn't go outside anyway because there was crime and I was, what do you call it? I forgot the word. I was coerced by the police they bribed me. They asked for a bribe to not take me to jail for doing nothing. That's the neighborhood I lived in. It was very strange. Very corrupt. So I didn't really want to go outside that much. So I was stuck in my house for like 9 months on my own. It was horrible. And I remember I said a prayer to ask for, I knew I was going back to Guatemala. I knew I couldn't afford to go home. And I said, I've always wanted to live in a bungalow. So I don't really see the point in stairs. Eventually, when I get older, I'm going to need to find another house. So if I just have a house now that has no stairs, boom, I don't need to move. That's kind of my thought. Right? It's I don't know if that's closed-minded. But I just makes life a bit easier. I don't need to think about future. It's there. But I wanted a bungalow on farmland nearby a river that was quiet. And while I was there, I needed someone who could speak English. And when I finally contacted my friend, because I got the money together to leave, I got there and I stayed at my friend's house for 2 weeks. And then he helped me find a house, this guy. And the first house we went to, right, it was a bungalow on farmland by a river. And within a month of me moving in there, my flatmate that moved in was a El Salvadorian who had moved there to do a better job of what I was supposed to be doing there. And he'd been in an English congregation for like 10 years, something like that. So his English was flawless. Although I think he'd never been to the States, never been to the UK, never been to an English-speaking country. I think that's right. And he, it was incredible. Every single one of the things I want had happened. And as a little cherry on top, when I arrived at this place, it's beautiful. I love thinking about this. There were these 3 little girls playing with their little dolls and whatever they had, and they were just, sitting outside. I think they were in the dirt, They were next door neighbors, right? I found out later on that it was their parents that I was going to be renting that house from, so that's why they were there. And they were friends of the people who showed me the house. The 2 older girls were like looking at me like, who is this white guy? He looks depressed. He's pale, like proper pale. Like, what's going on? Why is he here? What is he doing in our house? And then there was this young little like 4 or 5-year-old. And this 4 or 5-year-old got up and ran over. I assumed to see her friends because she didn't know who I was. And she gave me a hug. I got down, I bent over, and she didn't go to the friends first. She came, I got down on my, haunches because I wanted to be on her level. I didn't want to intimidate her, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3", so I didn't want to, scare her. And she gave me a hug. And I was just like, for the past year or so, I'd been shown the least bit of love, and I had been the least bit loving to my former fiance. And it was just like, this is where I'm meant to be. This is it. And I've got a deep affection for that country, that neighborhood, that family. That family taught me so very much. It was incredible. And then when I moved back to the UK, about 9 months later, and my brother got married, and just so happened to have the money at the time to get back. It was I can't really remember how I got back. If someone helped me, if the person that has helped me watch this, I'm very sorry. I just don't remember exactly how I got back. I just know that I arrived back in England. That kind of period is a bit of a blank for me. So if you did help me, thank you. If I didn't, thank God for what He's given to me. I arrived back in England, and I stayed 9 months in my dad's place, and then I moved. When I moved out, I didn't even ask for the same thing, but I live now at this person's house. It's a little, essentially a granny flat, right? A flat for old people, but it's on farmland in the middle of nowhere. It's attached to the landlord's house, so it's basically a bungalow. That's what it is. There's a little river down that way, and I got a flatmate who's good fun. And yeah, like, it's happened twice in a row. Twice in a row I've got exactly what I asked for, and the second time I didn't even ask for it. And it, like, bonkers, crazy. It baffles my mind that it's happened twice in a row. And I didn't have to go looking for either apartment. Someone else found it for me. But I know I'd asked for it. And I didn't have to do anything. It wasn't hard work. I just received it. And I had done nothing to deserve it. The love from God, the love from the people around me at that time, despite them not knowing me, was bonkers, crazy. And I've got plenty of stories from there. But later on, so I was teaching English while I was out there, and I've still got a few students. And that's my Wednesday. Wednesdays is my day to do my thing. Every other day I give to my work, but Wednesday is for my students, because I just really enjoy it. But because work had dried up a little bit, I decided that I needed some work, but I didn't really know how to go about it. So my brother goes out and he does the smart thing of actually looking for work. But I've got a car, and he doesn't. So I drove him over to his interview. I walked in, and the guy offers me a job. I did no work. I knew I needed a job. I didn't even ask for it. I just knew I needed a job. And without me doing a single lick of work, I got a job. And that only lasted a month, maybe, just over a month. That was it, easy peasy. And then when that ended, that money lasted me like another month. And by the end of that month, I'd got another job. Someone else had helped me get a job somewhere else, and I'm still working there. It's a Tim Hortons, so it's a Canadian coffee shop if you don't know. And it's a great team, and I thoroughly enjoy myself, and it's great, absolutely great. I don't know what I've done to deserve it, but I can tell you that I was, at that time, when I was in Mexico and I wanted to come home, I accepted where I was. And then things started to work out. Now, and that's me looking back at the hardest time of my life so far. I'm sure it'll get worse. But hell wasn't actually that hot. It wasn't that difficult. It was difficult, it was hard, it was everyday work, but I did it. And I'm not saying this isn't to blow my own fluid, this is to explain that whatever it is that you're going through, we are told that we are strong enough. Now, for thousands of years, the Christian churches have used that good book to tell us how bad we are, to show that we need to do something to get something out of it. When the Bible strictly tells us we are already loved by God. Now, if we go against nature, the nature that God has given to us in this world, if we lie, we cheat, we steal, we do things, then the string will snap, and and things will catch up with us. So be one with nature. Follow the natural order of things. Follow what God has told us to do. And things will start to work out. I guarantee it. It may not be as fast as you want it to be, because it's in God's time, in the time that nature allows it to be. But it will work out. Trust the process, follow the process, and trust that you are strong enough to go through whatever it is you are going through. Hell is not that hot. So I'm going to leave it there. Have a fantastic week. I didn't upload a video last week, but I think I got like my first video is now at like 96 views, which is like crazy for me. And the second video's got 12 views, I think it is. Like, if there was 111 people or whatever it is in my house right now, I would be struggling. So thank you so much for watching my video. Whatever you want to do. But I just really appreciate you watching, and I hope what I say is valuable for someone. I really care for you, and I know you can succeed in whatever it is that you want to do. You've got this. It's fine. Okay? Have a great week, and I will see you next week.